The package arrived on a rainy Thursday afternoon. It wasn't my birthday. It wasn't Christmas. There wasn't even a return address. Only my name, written neatly across the front. I carried the box into the kitchen where Mom was making tea. "Did you order something?" she asked. I shook my head.
No.
She looked just as curious as I was. Inside the box was a carefully folded outfit. A navy blazer, a crisp white shirt, dark jeans. A handwritten note rested on top. "You already have everything you need. Sometimes you just need to see it." There was no signature, no explanation, just those words. I frowned. "Do you know who sent this?" Mom smiled mysteriously. "Maybe." "What does that mean?" "It means, try it on first." I wasn't interested. I had never cared much about fashion. Most days I wore whatever was closest to the top of my drawer. Comfort mattered. Nothing else. Still, curiosity won. I changed into the outfit and stood in front of the mirror. For a long moment, I simply stared. It wasn't that I looked like a different person. I looked like someone who had started believing they deserved to make an effort. Mom smiled when I walked back into the kitchen. "Well," I shrugged, trying to hide my smile. "It actually feels nice." She laughed. "I thought you might say that." The next morning, I almost changed back into my old hoodie. What if people notice? What if they think I'm trying too hard? Those thoughts followed me all the way to school. As I walked through the front doors, my heart raced. Then, someone called my name. "Hey, Alex." It was Noah. "You look great today." I blinked. "Really?"
Yeah.
"That jacket suits you." Before I could answer, another classmate smiled. Looking sharp. That was it. No teasing. No whispers. Just ordinary kindness. I realized something. Most of the criticism I'd feared existed only inside my own head. During English class, Mrs. Lewis handed back our essays. She paused beside my desk. "Excellent work." I looked surprised. "Thanks." She smiled. "You've been participating more lately." I've noticed. Had I? Maybe confidence wasn't just changing the way I looked. Maybe it was changing the way I carried myself. The way I spoke. The way I believed my ideas mattered. That evening, I found Mom sitting on the porch. I sat beside her. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "Did you send that package?" She smiled. "Ask your aunt to mail it." I laughed. "So it was you." She nodded. "I wanted it to feel like a surprise." "But why?" She looked out toward the sunset. "Because for months, I watched you disappear into the background. You stopped believing in yourself. And I missed the smile you used to have." I was quiet. She continued. "I wasn't trying to change who you are. I simply wanted to remind you of the confident person I'd always seen." I looked down at the blazer folded across my lap. For the first time, it didn't feel like just another piece of clothing. It felt like a reminder that sometimes the biggest transformation doesn't happen in the mirror. It begins with the way we choose to see ourselves. And I had no idea that this simple outfit would soon lead me to an opportunity that would change my future forever. The email sat unopened for nearly 5 minutes. I kept reading the subject line over and over. "Congratulations. You've been nominated for the Regional Student Leadership Conference." "There has to be a mistake," I whispered. I clicked it anyway. The message explained that teachers from several schools had recommended students who demonstrated growth, leadership, and kindness throughout the year. My name was on the list. For a moment, I just stared at the screen. A few months ago, no one outside my classroom even knew who I was. Now someone believed I belonged at a regional conference. That evening, Mom found me sitting quietly at the dining table. "You've been smiling at your laptop for 10 minutes, she said with a laugh. "Good news." I turned the screen toward her. She read the email slowly. Then she looked at me. "I knew you'd get here." I shook my head. "I didn't." She smiled. "That's the difference. You finally started believing what other people had seen in you all along." The conference was held at a nearby university. Students from dozens of schools filled the auditorium. Some had started volunteer organizations. Others had led environmental projects or organized charity events. Listening to their accomplishments my confidence started to fade. What am I doing here? I thought. Compared to everyone else, I felt ordinary. During the first break, I stepped outside for some fresh air. A speaker from the morning session noticed me sitting alone on a bench. Mind if I join you? Not at all. He smiled. First conference? I nodded. How could you tell? He laughed. Because you have the same expression I had at my first one. I admitted what I'd been thinking. I don't feel impressive enough to be here. He looked around the campus before answering. Do you know what every person in this conference has in common? I shrugged. We all thought someone else deserved our seat. That surprised me. Really? Every single one of us. He smiled. Confidence isn't believing you're the most talented person in a room. It's realizing you still belong in the room. Those words stayed with me for the rest of the day. That afternoon, the students were divided into small teams to solve community problems. My group was asked to design a project that would help younger students feel more connected when starting a new school. Everyone began sharing ideas. For a while, I stayed quiet. Then I remembered something Mom had said. Your voice matters, even when you're unsure. I raised my hand. What if we pair every new student with a volunteer mentor for their first month? The room became quiet. Then one student smiled. I love that idea. Another added, we could organize weekly check-ins. Within minutes, the entire group was building on the idea. By the end of the session, our project had been selected as one of the strongest proposals. As we packed up, one teammate turned to me. I'm glad you spoke up. So am I replied. And I meant it. When I returned home that evening, Mom was waiting on the porch. How was it? I sat beside her. I learned something. What? I kept thinking confidence meant becoming a different person. She listened quietly. But it isn't. It's simply trusting that the person you already are has something worthwhile to offer. Mom smiled. I've been hoping you discover that. I looked toward the sunset. It was funny. Months earlier, I thought one outfit had changed my life. Now I understood the truth. The outfit had only been the beginning. The real transformation happened every time I chose courage instead of fear. And for the first time in a very long time, the Student Leadership Conference ended with one final announcement. We have one last opportunity, the host said. We're launching a community mentorship program. Students who are interested in helping younger teenagers build confidence and leadership skills can apply today. My heart skipped a beat. A few months ago, I would have quietly packed my bag and gone home. Now, I actually considered applying. Still, that familiar voice crept back into my mind. You're not experienced enough. Someone else would do a better job. I stood frozen. Then I remembered something the guest speaker had said earlier. Confidence isn't believing you're the most qualified person. It's being willing to grow into the role. I walked to the registration table. Hi, I said. I'd like an application. The volunteer smiled. I was hoping you'd stop by. Over the next several weeks, the mentorship program met every Saturday morning. Each mentor was paired with 2 younger students. My first mentee was a quiet freshman named Ethan. He reminded me of myself. He rarely spoke. He sat at the back of every session. And whenever someone complimented him, he looked down at the floor. During our third meeting, I asked him a simple question. What do you enjoy doing? He shrugged. I don't know. There must be something. After a long silence, he admitted, I like drawing. Then why don't you ever talk about it? He smiled awkwardly. I don't think I'm very good. I couldn't help but laugh. You know, I used to say almost the exact same thing. He looked surprised. Really? Really? I told him about the mysterious package, the blazer, and the journey that had followed. When I finished, he asked, So, what changed? I thought for a moment. The day I stopped waiting to feel confident before trying. A month later, the mentors organized a small community showcase. Students displayed artwork, science projects, short stories, and music performances. I noticed Ethan standing beside a table, holding a sketchbook tightly against his chest. You brought your drawings? He nodded. I almost left them at home. I smiled. I'm glad you didn't. An elderly woman stopped at his table. She carefully looked through every page. Finally, she smiled. These are wonderful. Ethan looked at me with wide eyes. For the first time since we'd met, I saw genuine confidence in his smile. Not because he had won anything, because he had finally shared something he loved. On the drive home, I told Mom everything. She listened quietly before saying, "Do you know what's happening?"
What?
"The encouragement I gave you, you're passing it on." I hadn't thought about it that way. She was right. The gift wasn't really the outfit. It wasn't the mirror. It wasn't even the journal. The real gift was learning that encouragement has a way of multiplying. When someone believes in you, you become more capable of believing in others. That evening, I opened the journal one last time. On the final blank page, I wrote, "The outfit didn't change my life. It gave me the courage to take one small step." That step led to another, and another, until one day, I looked back and realized how far I'd come. The greatest transformations don't happen overnight. They happen one choice at a time. I closed the journal with a smile. The journey wasn't over. In many ways, it was only just beginning.